Well, the first thing I wanted to begin with, Azra, was my favorite line from all your works that I've been exposed to is
Hmm.
tattooed into my Ottoman veins, I now held the mark of Cain. That is beautiful.
Thank
Where did
you
that
so
come
much.
from? And I
Yeah.
ask what it means.
So I think that was from the poem that I talk with my cousin. So there's this practice in Turkish where you flip over, you drink Turkish coffee, and then you flip your cup over, and then in the shadows of the side of the cup, there's like your fortune. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's always been like a forbidden thing to do. Like you can't ever look at your fortune to the future. And I'm Turkish, and the whole purpose of the poem is me doing the forbidden thing. So that's when I just said that line. So it just sort of came out. But
Man,
yeah.
it's such a beautiful line. It really got me, and I'm like, man, that's so beautiful because it it brings together two things that I'm so interested in. I love the history of the Ottoman Empire, of the Turkish people, and then also just Cain. The story of Cain means a lot to me. I'm just very interested in that story. So the way that you were able to pair those two things in these two beautiful lines, it was really something when I read it. And it
It's
was always in the back of my mind. So
really, it's what is it
yeah.
about the story of the Mark of Cain that like interests you? I'm curious. The story of Cain, I guess.
Yeah. Brotherhood, the complexity of brotherhood, the complexity of anger, the complexity of remorse and guilt, and just all those things tied together, and what that
Yeah.
does to a person on the inside. And I guess, that saying, skeletons in my closet, something like
Mm.
that. That's
Yeah.
that's what it is about the story of Cain that really gets to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so much to say about that. I work so well with poetry, so it's always hard for me to talk about in a linear way some of these lines. And I'm like, while I write my poetry, it's a very emotionally intense experience. So it just sort of takes over, and I just get it out. And I was really feeling it at that moment. And the way you just described that story, it made sense to me. So yeah.
Yeah, there's another one that you wrote that I thought was just amazing because it was a paradox. It was true, but at the same time, it was false. And the line was, "There is no wisdom at the end of starvation." It's like, man, that's heavy. What does that mean to you?
For me, there's no wisdom found at the end of starvation. It has several meanings. I can talk about the one that I agree with a lot of my friends. No wisdom found at the end of starvation in this society. I just grew up in a culture that showed food and indulgence and overindulgence in whether it be food or certain acts or letting yourself go in this society is seen as like you have to hold yourself back. You have to stay rigid and control yourself. And there's wisdom found there. If you hold back, you can find some sort of you can reach a spiritual, higher being or connect with God if you starve yourself. And I was sort of working against that in that poem. So I was like, there is no wisdom found at the end of starvation. That was one path that I saw it as.
It's beautiful because the way you explained it to me is the paradox itself. Like this society, it wants you to restrict yourself from indulging to keep like a really fit body. And at the same time, there's like a religious element to it where when you starve yourself, you can find wisdom through that if you believe that. And yeah, to me, it's both of those things. There's a truth to it and then a falsehood. There is no wisdom found in starvation.
Yeah. Do you also feel that way? Like, am I right in the society expectation of starving and like the body and the connection to wisdom. I also feel like there's a specific thread of I grew up like Muslim, and there's practice of fasting and how it can connect you with get you closer to God. And now that we're talking about it, I'm like, maybe that was also a sort of inspiration for that. What do you think about that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's a poem I wrote about fasting, which is called Rejoice, and I'm forgetting it right now, but the idea behind the poem was the person that fasts always has something to look forward to at the end of the day. Like I don't know if during Ramadan, for example, if you fasted, your whole focus, no matter what you're doing throughout the day, is in the evening at sundown, I'm gonna eat.
Yeah.
And so there's always something to look forward to. When you're not fasting, you just take food for granted. And maybe maybe you don't have anything to look forward to because everything's available to you. But the restriction of food and water, you feel like, man, there is something that I
Hmm.
have to look forward to. On the other side, when it comes to just in American culture, being fit, restricting yourself from food for being fit, like there's different purposes behind it. One of them is
Hmm.
just purely aesthetic, the other one is spiritual. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I think so. And there's like a whole different feeling during the month of Ramadan, and then after it's over, it's like a rebirth.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Can't
Yeah.
feel that way. How did you get the courage to start sharing your stuff?
Oh, so previously I had an Instagram account and it was sort of like a normal Instagram account. I would and also Instagram I found is such a I feel like I'm being so gutsy just sharing poems and just pictures without myself and words in a platform such as Instagram, which feels like the very opposite of sharing things like that. But yeah, I deleted that previous Instagram account and then I just thought I would open up a new account under a persona, the Songs of the Dead, which has its own thing attached to it. But I decided to hide my face from the account initially, and I was going through like a tough time, and I just somehow found words. I never saw myself as like a writing poetry being my medium, but I just wrote it. It just came out, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna share this. Let's see what happens. And then when I saw some people connect to it and then interpret it in different ways, just one or two people. I was so surprised because I never saw it. I didn't think it made sense. Um, Imposter syndrome. So that just sort of, whenever you have two people connecting with it, it gave me so much inspiration to just continue sharing and sharing. And I won't lie to you, sometimes I feel very exposed with the poetry, and I have these like bursts of time, and I'm like, what on earth am I doing? Like, why is this so vulnerable thing just out there? But then I connect with those one or two people, and then it's like it doesn't. None of the rest matters, you know?
Yeah. And you've shared so many too. It's quite the body of work. Where did the Songs of the Dead title come from? The name.
Mhm. The Songs of the Dead. So I lost my mom to like she died from cancer in 2019. And ever since then, I felt connected to like the line between the living and the dead sort of blurred for me. It sort of became non-existent. And I sort of saw some of my poems as songs of the living and the dead just speaking out, and the dead being more alive than the living and things like that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
what do you mean by that part? The dead being more alive than the living?
So hard to describe in linear. Um, the dead being more alive than the living. I feel like whenever you fail or whenever you reach such a rock bottom in your life and you feel completely fogged and clouded, it reach a truth for yourself and it feels more alive than how you feel in this society, completely like living your routine life, I think. That makes sense. Yeah. What do you think I mean by it?
Well, the first thing I was thinking about that statement was there's been times in my life where I'll read a book by a dead author and I'll feel so connected to them and think to myself, man, he really knows what I'm feeling or thinking or going through. Or even a dead artist, for example, a musician who sang a song and I'm like Chris Cornell, quite literally. I remember there was this one song of his I stumbled upon and I was sitting there at my kitchen table and I'm doing my work and I'm listening to the song. I'm like, I pause everything, put down my pen. And I'm like, how does this man have the words for the things going on in my life? I don't understand. And he's dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's the beautiful phenomenon of art, of sharing things. And
Yeah.
so when you said that, that's what I heard it as people that are dead that have left behind something, could be anything that you can remember them by. Um, maybe that thing, whatever it is, makes you feel more alive in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah,
And it continues, like it doesn't matter where you are. For me, um, Hafiz, you know Hafiz Sufi, the poet.
great poet.
He that the thing you're describing, I feel with his poetry. I read it and I'm like, well, the translations of it, I don't think I could ever understand the uh, version, which I wish I could. But yeah, I feel that way with him.
Yeah, he's got this great line. My favorite thing from Hafiz is he says, treat every person you know as if they're a guest of God. And that hits
Yeah.
me so hard. And it's hard to live by, honestly, but to strive for that, that's a really beautiful thing. It puts things into perspective. Like, oh, this human being in front of
Yeah,
me, I should pay attention.
yeah, like a guest on God's like dance floor or something. You're
Yeah.
familiar with Hafiz. That was so like satisfying to hear you say that line.
Yeah. No, he's a really cool poet. But my favorite poet of all of them is actually Shems. Maybe you're familiar with him.
A little bit.
Yeah, and actually, you and me, we have a shared interest in a TV show called Atia. And in that TV show, they say my favorite line from Shems, which is ne biliyorsun hayatının altının üstünden daha iyi olmadığını. How do you know your life wouldn't be better turned upside down?
Yeah.
And that line really helped me a lot at that time in my life when I heard it. And it's just my favorite line of poetry from Shems. Maybe even my favorite line of poetry of all time.
Yeah. Life turned upside down. How did it help you, like, when you thought about everything switching? Like in your own life, you applied it to your own life when you heard that and it helped that way?
Yeah, because there's these moments where in language we would call it coincidence, but it's really just fate or destiny, right? Like it just
Mm.
right place, right time kind of a thing. And when I heard that line, I was at a place in my life where I felt like I was lower than rock bottom. And
Up
that
there.
confused me. And it felt like my life was upside down and it was something. It was tough. And then that line, I heard that line and it changed everything. It was like a spring that just blossomed inside of me, a fountain. Wow, what if my life could be better and I just don't know it yet?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember watching Atiye and it helping me a lot too. It was more so along the realms of, I think Hafiz has a line that says everything that happened already happened and it'll keep happening the same way. I'm not sure if he wrote that or if I wrote it. So many of my poems are inspired by him too. But that was inspiring to me because of like the unknown. It's just it already happened. It's gonna keep happening the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part of Atia?
Of Atiye, it was in 2021, 2022 that I watched it. I don't know how to describe it, but I grew up in Turkey. I'm Turkish, and the setting of Atiye, that area I'm somewhat familiar with from childhood, and it was more so the recording and the music just gave me a sense of home. But I'm not that familiar with that setting. I haven't really lived there, but it's like I've always lived there. I felt like that. So this sense of familiarity, but it was also really scary, that familiarity that I felt from Atiye, I think was my favorite part. Yeah. More
Oh,
feelings and emotions from it. Yeah.
interesting. And the place you're referring to, Göbekli Tepe, is that the one?
Go back to Tepe. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Yeah, no, I really loved that show. Um, just a lot of really cool concepts, a lot of cool ideas, and I love how they explored them in that TV show. And Darren Sath, I mean, I love her. She's done some amazing work, and she
Yeah.
she really brought that character to life.
Yeah. What did you think of, like, as a side note about the second season? I feel like the first was unreal. Like, very, I felt really connected to it. And then the second season, it wasn't as great.
From what I remember, that first season was phenomenal, and that soundtrack was phenomenal. The second season, I think it was quite literally an embodiment of Shems's line of poetry. Everything went upside down, and it was.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I wasn't as big a fan of the second season. It kind of lost me a little bit.
But when you say it like comparing it to the Shems line, it gives me a little more, I don't know, I like it a little better thinking about it that
Mm,
way because it is right like that. Yeah. You said you write poetry as well.
I do, yeah.
What type of like poetry do you write? If you could classify it in like a certain theme.
I don't know if there's a particular theme for it. I write in general. I've written beyond poetry even. And when people ask me, what do you write? I say everything and anything. My poems, I feel like, are a place where I can leave romantic feelings, sad feelings, and just musings in general. But it goes so much more beyond that, you know? Um,
That's the first time I've heard that, leaving romantic feelings and things like that, because it reaches another level when you write poetry about truth and even more romantic, even deeper, but not like what we experience day to day.
yeah, yeah. It reminds me actually of one poem that I wrote. It's called Memory Stains. And a couple of
Memories.
lines in there go something like, "This is the place where your memory lives and my love for you dies." And it's like something tangible. It's almost like a prison, you know? But it depends on the content of the poem. It's a prison if it's something like dark or negative, but
Yeah.
it's like a beautiful place if it's something beautiful, I guess.
Like the poem itself, right? Like a place.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way too. Whenever I'm struggling, like I wrote a poem recently and it's about this little pocket in your notebook. Um, a, a note, no, no, yeah, not a notebook in your pocket, but a pocket in your notebook. And it's like whenever I'm feeling really unsafe, untethered, like having these words written, it feels like a physical safe space for me to just like tether myself to that little world in the paper.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really cool phenomenon to me. Always, when you write something down and you see it tangibly in front of you, it does something.
Yeah, I agree.
I've written thousands of poems, and only a couple hundred of them have been out there in the world. Sometimes when I look back at certain pieces, I can remember that I was really in love with this piece, but because I wrote it a couple years ago and I'm not the same person anymore, it just doesn't hit the same way. And what that does to me is it makes me a little frustrated because it's like, man, this poem didn't see the light of day yet. The world didn't get a chance to lay its eyes on it yet. but even if I release it, I'm not that same person anymore. It's not special in the same way to me anymore. Do you ever get feelings like that when you look back at your work and you think, man, I'm just not the same person anymore?
I have a question for you before I answer that. Do you fear, like, if you, because I'm wondering that for myself, if you release that poem, for example, it's been a couple years since you wrote it and then you release it, do you have this fear that people will associate the author of that with you currently, like a sort of feeling of being misunderstood, or just because you don't feel connected to it, you don't think it's might be worth sharing at that time, like an old poem, present day?
That's a good question. I think that's definitely an element of it. I think the real sorrow for me is kind of like time being a train that I missed. So, as Rick Rubin says, when we write stuff or we make art, he said something like this. When we make stuff, it's like a snapshot of who we are at that time. And I
Mm,
wholeheartedly agree. But the thing is, like, if I show you this thing now, it's not the same. It's a different time. And it's not just that I've changed and other people have changed, but the culture has changed. The
yeah,
zeitgeist has changed. The things people give significance to aren't the same anymore either. So that's the sorrow. It's like I feel like I missed that wrinkle in time, that place in time.
yeah, I love this question. I feel the same. Yeah. Because it'll be so intense. I will have written something that's so intense and emotional, and maybe it was too I felt too connected to it, so I didn't publish it at the time. And then I go back to it and I read it and I try really hard to get into that same state of mind. I don't think I had the words for it until you now like described it to me. But I think that's what the phenomenon is, like trying to not feeling that same thing, trying to get into the same state of mind, but it not hitting the same anymore. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And
still, yeah, still, I will love to publish them because I think someone will connect to it. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And that's always the hope. That's always the hope. But do you ever feel disappointed with the way that your works are received?
Ooh, questions are hitting. Do I ever feel disappointed? I think the if I don't get any, for example, if I share a couple of, I do spoken word nights sometimes, and if I share a couple of um, my poems and people connect with like two of them, and then one of them is just not addressed at all, or like if I share a post and I don't receive any messages about that, I think that like no reciprocation, it makes me feel like it's not there and it doesn't exist there. I think that's the argument. Other than that, I love single interpretation that people have. Even if I strongly disagree with it, I'm like, go off, take it as you'll have it. Um, but even then, if I don't receive a response for some of them, I will be like hanging out with a friend and then they'll just refer to it. And then I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know you read this. I didn't know you thought this way about it. And then it circles back. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. That is cool. I do have more conversations and I'd like to continue, but again, I want to respect your time. How's it looking for you?
Oh yeah, 33. I have like I can do until 35, so like 2 more minutes.
Well, in that case, I don't really have much else to say. I felt like we were warming up, but it is what it is. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say you didn't get a chance to? Something on your
Um,
mind you wanted to express?
I love your energy. I feel like we connect on a poetic, intellectual level, and I would love to like be friends with you. So we should like collaborate on a poem perhaps in the future. That would be interesting to see how that plays out.
That would be interesting. Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate
Yeah.
you saying that. Um, there is just one thing I wanted to close off with. It's actually a poem from another one of my favorite poets. I don't know if you know Omar Khayyam. Are you familiar with him?
Ramida Khayyam.
Yeah, he's
It
a
sounds
Persian poet.
I don't think I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, he's got this one stanza that I love, and he says, "Indeed, the idols I have loved so long have done my credit in this world much wrong, have drowned my glory in a shallow cup, and sold my reputation for a song." I love that line, or those lines, and yeah, I just wanted to share that. So
The idol, do you feel that way with any artists? Or is there something with this that you feel connected to?
I feel connected to the whole thing. I feel
Yeah.
connected to the whole thing. I think I mean, of course, there's many different interpretations, but I think what he's trying to say is in life, we get so distracted. We get deceived by our excitement, for example, and we focus on certain things that we think will pay off, but they don't. Or maybe they do, but in the end, they ultimately don't. And it is what it is. He's kind of just putting his
Something
hands
that
in
you
the
like
air.
really wish for and then it happens and then like it wasn't like that.
Yeah, I guess realizing the emptiness of glory, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that's all I wanted to
yeah.
share. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me, and I would love to hear more about you in a future time.
Yeah, no, likewise. Thank you for being here. I suppose until next time, man. Take
Yes,
care.
next time.